What if everything Indiana Fever fans thought they knew about this team's timeline just got thrown out the window overnight? For months, the narrative was simple, patient, comfortable. Clark, Boston, Mitchell, a young core with time to grow, time to develop, time to figure it out together. Fans believed the front office had breathing room. They don't anymore. Because buried inside the proposed new WNBA CBA is a single clause, quiet, technical, easy to miss, that just compressed Indiana's championship window from a slow build into an urgent decision. This isn't about drama. It's not about locker room tension. It's not about who likes who or who fits the culture. It's about math. Cold, unforgiving cap math. And when the numbers shift, loyalty doesn't matter. Feelings don't matter. History doesn't matter. Only structure matters. So let's break down exactly what changed, why it changes everything for Indiana specifically, and what the Fever must do before the window they think they have disappears entirely. The new CBA proposal didn't make front-page news. There were no dramatic press conferences, no viral debates, no emergency panels on sports television. But inside that document was a rule so impactful for certain franchises that it might as well have been a grenade dropped quietly on their 5-year plans. Here's what it says. Any player who earns first or second team all WNBA honors while still on a rookie contract becomes eligible to sign a maximum contract in their 4th season, not after their rookie deal expires, not in year 5. Year 4. Read that again slowly, because that's where Indiana's entire timeline shifts. Under the original structure, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston were both on rookie-scale contracts. That's the holy grail of team building. You have 2 franchise-level players producing at maximum impact for non-maximum money. The savings fund depth, the flexibility fund's versatility, the cap space fund's a complete roster. It's a competitive advantage, a rare one. And Indiana had it on both ends of the floor simultaneously. Boston, dominant defensively, elite interior presence, already an all-WNBA honoree. Clark, historic offensive talent, national attention driver, ascending at a rate nobody has seen before. 2 pillars, both discounted, both developing. The runway seemed long, but the new CBA doesn't care about your runway. Boston already qualifies under the new rule. Her all-WNBA recognition triggers the eligibility. Her max clock starts ticking now, not later now. Clark is right behind her. If she earns all WNBA honors, and everything about her trajectory says she will, her max window accelerates too. And here's the part that makes front offices sweat at night. Instead of staggering these contracts over multiple seasons, giving Indiana time to absorb each commitment individually, they now begin to overlap. 2 franchise max deals, same window, same cap sheet. That overlap changes every single roster decision the Fever make from this point forward. Let's slow down and talk numbers, because this is where the real tension lives. When Clark and Boston were both on rookie-scale contracts, Indiana's cap sheet had flexibility most teams don't experience. You could carry depth. You could absorb a veteran contract. You could afford to experiment. You had margin for error. Margin for error is the luxury that turns good teams into great ones. Once both players hit max deals, that margin shrinks dramatically. Here's the reality. 2 max contracts in the WNBA don't just occupy cap space, they dictate everything around them. Depending on final CBA figures, you're potentially looking at 35 to 40% of the team's total cap allocation tied to 2 players before a single additional contract is signed. Can you win with that? Yes, if the surrounding pieces are right. But can you win with that and commit premium money to a 3rd star simultaneously? That's where the math gets uncomfortable. Kelsey Mitchell is not a role player. She's not a minimum contract piece. She's a high-volume scorer who creates her own offense, handles late-game pressure, and has earned every dollar she's about to command. But the question was never about what Mitchell deserves. The question is whether the structure can hold 3 premium contracts without collapsing the depth Indiana needs to actually compete for a championship. Because here's what happens when you stack max-level commitments without surgical precision around them. You lose depth, you lose flexibility, you lose the mid-tier contributors who win playoff series. You fill roster spots with minimum contracts and cross your fingers. In the regular season, star power can mask those gaps. In the playoffs, opponents find those gaps in the first quarter of Game 1 and never let go. Indiana's goal isn't to win games in June, it's to win games in September. And championship depth costs money that top-heavy rosters simply don't have. So when fans say, just keep everyone, and that instinct comes from a good place, it really does, the honest answer has to be, everyone costs too much. And once the cap math tightens, someone becomes the pivot point. Right now, that someone is Kelsey Mitchell. This is the conversation nobody wants to have because it requires separating emotion from strategy. And with a player like Mitchell, someone who stayed through the dark years, who carried offensive loads when the franchise had no direction, who showed up when showing up was genuinely hard, that separation feels almost disrespectful. But this is professional sports, and professional sports are rarely kind to loyalty when the financial structure shifts. Mitchell is entering the stage of her career where her value peaks. She's proven she can score at volume. She's proven she can operate alongside Clark without friction. She's shown she handles pressure, adapts to systems, and competes at a high level on both sides of the ball. In any other cap environment, she's a franchise cornerstone you build around. In Indiana's current cap environment, with 2 max commitments arriving simultaneously, she becomes something different. She becomes the swing variable. And being the swing variable in professional sports means your future depends on organizational strategy, not individual performance. Your production becomes tradable equity. Your peak value becomes a resource, not a punishment, a resource. Here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. Mitchell's value may never be higher than it is at this exact moment. She's proven. She's in her prime. She's an established scorer in a league where scoring guards with creation ability are always in demand. Around the league, there are franchises that feel one perimeter scorer away from relevance. Mitchell walks into those situations immediately. That creates leverage, and leverage in professional sports has a shelf life. If Indiana waits, if they try to keep the trio together for one more season, buy time, delay the decision, that leverage doesn't stay frozen. It fades, slowly at first, then faster than you'd expect. Other teams start to see the cap pressure. They recognize that Indiana will eventually have to move someone. And once the league knows you must make a move, offers shrink. Markets tighten. What was once a bidding war becomes a cautious negotiation. That's not speculation. That's how asset economics work in every professional league. Indiana must decide whether to convert Mitchell's peak value from a position of strength or watch that value decline until a trade becomes necessary on someone else's terms. There is no comfortable middle. There is no neutral option. Delay is itself a decision. And in this case, delay is the most expensive one. So what should Indiana actually do? There's one move that makes the most structural sense, and it's bold enough that most fans won't want to hear it. Core her, then trade her. Let's break down why this is actually the smartest path. The core designation gives Indiana one thing above everything else: control. It prevents Mitchell from walking freely. It locks in negotiating rights at max-level salary for one season. It means Indiana, not Mitchell, not rival franchises, dictates the timeline. And when you control the timeline, you control the market. Think about what Indiana could realistically demand in a sign-and-trade scenario. A first-round pick and a young starter. Multiple first-round picks. A high-upside wing on a rookie deal plus draft capital. A package that gives Indiana exactly what a top-heavy roster can't generate on its own. Depth, flexibility, youth, and assets. That's not an exaggeration. That's asset economics for a proven, prime-aged scorer under team control in a league that desperately needs perimeter creators. And here's the layer most people miss. Indiana doesn't need equal talent back. They need structural balance. Clark doesn't need another high-usage guard to thrive. She needs spacing. She needs movement. She needs versatile wings who make teams defend multiple threats simultaneously. She needs defenders who give her rest on the other end. Boston doesn't need another primary scorer either. She needs balance, interior support, and freedom from defensive schemes designed to double-team her. A core and trade doesn't weaken the Fever. It reshapes them. It converts immediate star power into long-term structural advantages. And that's exactly how dynasties quietly form, not by collecting the most recognizable names, by building the most sustainable ecosystem. Now let's talk about the scenario nobody wants to say out loud, but every Indiana fan needs to understand. What happens if they do nothing? What if the Fever decide to stay comfortable? Keep the trio. Hope the cap works itself out. Tell themselves one more season of evaluation before making the hard call. That's the path that destroys championship windows. Here's how it plays out. Year 1, everything looks fine. Clark ascends. Boston earns her max. The trio plays well together. Fans are excited. The cap hasn't fully tightened yet. Year 2, Boston's max kicks in. Clark's extension is on the horizon. Mitchell's contract demands haven't decreased. Now, Indiana's financial options narrow quickly. The depth thins. Flexibility disappears. The margin for error that great teams require, gone. Year 3, Clark signs her max. The cap sheet locks in. 3 premium commitments, limited bench depth, no room to absorb injury or add meaningful pieces at the deadline. Playoff basketball arrives and opponents exploit exactly what top-heavy rosters always expose. Depth mismatches, limited rotation options, predictable lineups. And through all of this, if Mitchell never signed an extension and eventually reaches unrestricted free agency, Indiana gets nothing. No picks, no assets, no compensation. Just cap space and the memory of what they could have converted when the leverage was real. That's not a catastrophic collapse. It's something slower and almost harder to watch. Structural erosion, quiet inefficiency, a championship window that never fully opens because the foundation cracked before the building was finished. And once Clark's prime years are being spent compensating for cap mistakes made 4 years earlier, that's when fans start asking questions that don't have good answers. The CBA didn't push Indiana toward crisis. It pushed Indiana toward clarity. And ignoring clarity is always more expensive than acting on it. At some point, every organization has to answer one internal question honestly. Who does this team belong to? Not publicly, not for media consumption, internally, in planning rooms, in salary projections, in the 5-year models that determine how every dollar gets allocated. For the Indiana Fever, that answer is no longer complicated. This is Caitlin Clark's franchise. And once you accept that reality, truly accept it, not as a talking point, but as a structural truth, every surrounding decision becomes sharper. Clark isn't just a talented player on a development curve. She's a transformational figure. She bends defensive schemes on contact. She changes opponent preparation the moment she crosses half court. She forces coverage adjustments that create advantages for every teammate on the floor. But beyond basketball, she alters visibility at a scale the WNBA hasn't seen before. The Fever are no longer a rebuilding team hoping for national attention. They are the national story. Every road trip, Every broadcast, every merchandise run, every expansion conversation traces some portion of its energy back to her presence. That's not hype. That's economic impact. And economic impact at that level reshapes how an organization must think. Aaliyah Boston fits perfectly inside that framework. She's young, she's dominant without needing the ball. She anchors the interior while Clark operates from the perimeter. She defends at an elite level that gives Indiana credibility against any opponent. Their skill sets don't compete, they compound. That pairing is scalable, it's flexible, it's built for longevity. Now ask the harder question. Does adding a third max-level guard to that foundation enhance the structure or complicate it? Clark thrives when the offense flows through her decisions. She creates spacing by existing on the floor. She elevates role players by forcing defensive attention she then redistributes. Her ceiling expands when surrounded by shooters, defenders, and versatile wings who fill gaps she creates. That ecosystem requires cap balance, and cap balance requires making difficult decisions early, before comfort becomes necessity. Clark's franchise gravity demands smart layering, not emotional retention. Every era in sports feels permanent until it ends, and endings are always clearer in hindsight than they are in the moment. The Clark-Boston-Mitchell trio wasn't a mistake. It was a bridge, a necessary, valuable, important bridge that gave Indiana identity at a moment when identity was exactly what the franchise needed. But bridges are designed to get you somewhere, not to stay on forever. The CBA accelerated the timeline. Boston's max arrives sooner. Clark's payday follows. The rookie scale advantage that made the trio financially sustainable is closing, and once it closes, the structure must evolve. The new Indiana Fever, the championship-built version, looks different. Clark as the offensive engine and franchise gravitational force. Boston as the defensive anchor and interior dominant. Around them, cost-controlled depth, versatile wings, shooters who space the floor, defenders who give Clark rest, draft assets that allow annual adjustment. That roster is flexible. It's adaptable. It can evolve year over year as the league changes around it. That roster wins in June, and more importantly, it wins in September. Here's what makes this moment genuinely rare. Indiana isn't being forced into a rebuild. They're not facing a franchise reset. They're standing at the entrance of a legitimate championship window, one that could span 5 to 7 years if managed correctly. 5 to 7 years of Clark in her prime, Boston in her prime, organizational discipline compounding annually. That's the opportunity sitting in front of the Indiana Fever right now. But opportunities don't have unlimited patience. They demand action. They demand clarity. They demand that an organization choose the destination over the comfort of the bridge that got them there. The CBA didn't create Indiana's problem. It created Indiana's moment. The front office must decide whether to see it that way. Let's bring this all the way back to where we started. One clause, one rule change, one accelerated timeline. Boston's max comes sooner. Clark's extension looms larger. The rookie discount window is closing faster than anyone planned. And the decisions Indiana makes in this offseason will echo through the next decade of this franchise. Keep everyone and hope the structure holds. That's one path. It's emotionally satisfying. It's fan-friendly. And it might quietly cost Indiana the championship window before it ever fully opens. Core Mitchell, trade from strength, convert peak value into long-term assets. That's the other path. It's harder to explain. It'll generate criticism. And it might be the move that turns a good team into a dynasty. The math doesn't lie. The timeline doesn't negotiate. The cap doesn't care about history. This isn't about Clark, Boston, and Mitchell as people. It's about Indiana choosing, right now, while leverage is real and options are open, what kind of franchise they want to be. sentimental or strategic, comfortable or calculated. And if history teaches us anything about championship windows, the teams that protect them early are the ones still playing in October. The Fever's moment is here. The question is whether they recognize it in time. This situation is still developing. The CBA isn't finalized. Trade conversations are quiet right now, but quiet never lasts long when cap clocks are ticking. The moment Indiana makes a move, we'll break it down completely. The strategy, the return, the long-term impact. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to know. Because what happens in this offseason won't just define next season, it'll define the next era of Indiana Fever basketball. Don't miss it.